This is The Credibility Gap, the podcast about the hole our leaders have fallen into by not standing up for us and our rights as citizens, and how we can help them climb out. Hint, write to them, call them. My name's Brita, and I'm your host. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Let's start with the road to autocracy. The headlines. Number 1, Stephen Miller, the Deputy White House Chief of Staff, says that the administration is actively looking into suspending habeas corpus. If you don't know what that is, you can look it up or come back for our next episode on due process. The second one is Senator Chuck Schumer of New York. He said that once President Trump's approval rating fell below 40%, he would lead the Democrats into some kind of action to stand up for us. So the approval rating for President Trump has fallen to 39%, and Senator Schumer announced that he has sent, in his words, a strong letter. That's not enough, Chuck. We need you to do more. And Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois has asked the Justice Department, including the FBI, to start an investigation on judges receiving anonymous pizzas. Now, I know this sounds silly, but it really is serious. It's an attempt to intimidate justices by saying, we know who you are, we know where you are, and we can get to you. So it really does need to be investigated. And Senator Durbin, please do more. You're leaving shortly, so do more for us while you're still there. Remember to try to keep focused on the Trump administration's actions threatening democracy and our democratic principles. Try to avoid distractions like tariffs, corruption, name-calling, and that damned golden airplane. This episode is about free speech. Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, when asked a question about how to respond to people who are afraid in the current political climate, said, "We are all afraid." It's quite a statement, she said after a long pause. We're in a time and a place where, I don't know, I have not been here before, and I'll tell you, I'm oftentimes very anxious myself about using my voice because retaliation is real. And that's not right. But that's what you've asked me to do, is use my voice. So I'm going to do that to the best of my ability. This was from the Anchorage Daily News by way of Politico. Free speech is all about the First Amendment, so I'm going to read it to you. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Most speech is protected speech by this First Amendment. There are only a few kinds of speech that are unprotected and therefore can be punished. The first one, true threats. When speech presents a clear and present danger of imminent harm. The second kind of speech is fighting words. When speech will lead to immediate lawless behavior. Some people are of the opinion that President Trump's speech on January 6, 2021, before the Capitol riot, was under this category, that those were fighting words. Excuse me. The next form of speech is libel, if untrue facts are given publicly with malice. So the more public a person is, whether they're a public official or a famous person, an influencer, whatever, the less likely they will be able to prove libel. And the last kind of speech that is abridged is obscenity. These are expressions that have no literary, artistic, political, or scientific value, or that speak to prurient or shameful sexual interests of an average person. As you can imagine, this is very hard to prove. Is hate speech protected? Yes, almost always. The government cannot decide which groups are not hateful and which groups are hateful. As a federal judge recently said, free speech is, and I quote, the best protection we have against any Nazi-type regime in this country. How about national security? Is speech about national security issues protected? Almost always. The Supreme Court has never upheld a national security free speech conviction. The reason is the amount of speech that affects national security is actually very, very small. And the public's right to know is essential to citizens' abilities to take part in our democratic process. Government tends to overuse the national security accusation in order to stifle free speech. Now, I would not think that our government would want to stifle free speech, but it does. Almost every government does. And that's why the founders put the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights to our Constitution. How about anti-Semitism? First of all, there's a definition of anti-Semitism, which a lot of organizations, including our State Department, use, and I've put a link to it below if you'd like to read it. It's somewhat lengthy. For decades, Jewish people and supporters of Israel have tried to carve out a special exception to the First Amendment and to Supreme Court rulings on hate speech. This is a dangerous idea and a slippery slope. As Senator Rand Paul of Wisconsin said in a Senate committee hearing on passing the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, free speech is, and I quote, unique about our country. In Europe, you can't say anything, Paul said. You say something about the Holocaust in Europe and you can go to jail. This is what we're doing. We're codifying what Europe did to free speech. It's a terrible idea. Unquote. The act being considered gives the U.S. Education Department the task of investigating reports of anti-Semitism in government-funded schools. This is from kindergarten through college. This is a terrible idea. Just the threat of an investigation or loss of funding, as we've seen the Trump administration try to pull off almost daily, could be enough to chill free speech on campuses. Anti-Semitism nearly always is legal. It can be shocking and distasteful to large numbers of us, but we all have the right to say horrible, even hateful things about each other, including the Jewish people. And as much as folks who support Israel would like this to be true, expressing support for the Palestinian people or even for Hamas is anti-Semitism, probably, but it's not illegal. Can Palestinian supporters, students on that side on campus, form two lines along a sidewalk so that Jewish students have to pass through those lines and listen to comments about Jewish people in Israel on their way to class? Yes, they can, as long as the Palestinian supporting students are not physically threatening or physically harassing the Jewish students. Is it poor taste and is anti-Semitic? Yes, but it doesn't violate the First Amendment. Might the Jewish students feel uncomfortable, scared, and even threatened? Yeah, probably, but so would any other group who's being protested against. Is denying the Holocaust anti-Semitic? Yes, but it's not illegal. Is hating Jewish people anti-Semitic? Yes, but it's not illegal. Protecting the feelings of others is not the job of protesters. The people being protested against are responsible for their feelings and their reactions to them. And now we get to cancel culture. As I said in the last episode, we would explore that in this episode. Here's a great definition I found online for the current interpretation of cancel culture. Cancel culture is the practice of withdrawing support from individuals or organizations, often on social media or in academic settings, due to actions or statements considered objectionable or offensive. It involves public shaming and can lead to ostracism or loss of opportunities for those who are, quote, canceled, unquote. I'm afraid woke people on the left seem to be the largest percentage of cancelers. In trying to be respectful of everyone's beliefs and feelings, and in trying to be politically correct, they end up judging and shaming those on the right that they deem as crude and insensitive. Being sensitive to the feelings of others is kind, but not required. We are not responsible for the feelings of others. I can't stress that enough. Unless it rises to the Supreme Court test of malicious libel, the what I call errant woke have the right to speak in the cancellation way, and the right has the right to object to it. They may even be correct in their assessments of the right. But the left is incorrect that those they'd like to cancel should be prohibited from their crude, insensitive speech. Some conservative folks also use shaming to signal how morally superior they believe that they are. I'm afraid this is one of those times when everyone can be disrespectful and even speak hatefully to the other side. In every case I've encountered, all of their speech is and has been protected. Most topics involved in cancel culture are attempts to talk about hot-button issues such as war, immigration, gender identity, abortion, all those kind of things. And these bring up strong feelings on all sides. Some are not even factual. Can the other side prove liable? Probably not. We are all responsible for our reactions and behaviors in response to lies and any other kind of speech we don't like. It is not illegal to lie unless you are under oath to a court or Congress or similar body. And remember, disengaging from these discussions or these kinds of arguments is not canceling out the other person or the other party. It's setting a boundary for how much you want to hear and how much you want to participate. I've been accused of canceling because I have said to folks, I don't want to hear any more of this. I've listened long enough. I'm going to hang up now, or I'm going to walk away. That is my setting of a boundary. There's one last free speech question from our current events, and that is, can students in the United States on education visas have them revoked for speaking out against the U.S. government and/or its policies? Yes, they can. Due to a U.S. State Department rule, the Secretary of State seems to have full authority to withdraw a student's visa, apparently for any reason or no reason at all. This rule is contrary to the First Amendment, I believe, and is being used to disappear students off the streets, to detain them, and to deport them. Some students have been able to retain attorneys, and they are filing for relief from the courts under habeas corpus. This situation bears watching, as I believe the State Department rule violates due process, which the Supreme Court has ruled applies to everyone in the United States, not to every citizen, everyone in the United States. And that's our next topic, due process. I'd like to leave you with a quote from retired Supreme Court Justice David Souter, who dedicated his retirement to civics education. He said, and I quote, "Civics education in the United States is not good enough, and we have to do something about it." Souter said this in an address to the American Bar Association in 2009, just months after he had retired from the Supreme Court, adding that there is a risk to constitutional government when a substantial portion of the American populace fails to learn basic civics. Civics has been removed from the elementary, junior high, and high school curricula of a lot of schools. So check your location and be sure that students and their folks are getting proper civics education. It's really why I started doing this podcast, so I was very tickled to see what Justice Souter had said about this. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe and hit that notification button so you won't miss a single episode. Also, if you have time, please leave a review. This really helps us move up in the rankings so people can find us. Also, share this with a friend. Just send them some of the links to these episodes. Share it with several friends. We need to get the word out that civics education is online. This podcast was produced by me, Brita Firm, not edited at all, and the artwork was generated by deepimage.ai. That's DEEPIMG.ai.